Good day, everyone. I am Greg Satilla. Welcome to CRPGlegends.com. Today we are going to talk about Anachronox, a CRPG from 2001 that has a slew of excellent reviews, and to this day people still rave about the humor, the characters, and the incredible story in this game. So I needed to check it out for myself and see if it's everything it was cracked up to be. I will say that after my playthrough that this game is definitely up there amongst the weirdest role-playing games that I have played before. The jokes are off the wall and they come pretty consistently throughout the story, which is an exciting space opera in a well thought out original world. Unfortunately, this entertaining story is housed within a game that struggles to match its world with its gameplay. So why has this game received so much critical acclaim over the years? Does the good really outweigh the bad by that bit of a margin, or does everyone just look at this game with rose-colored glasses? Let's find out. Anachronox is the work of a solid team headed by Tom Hall, who is an absolute legend in the gaming industry. Starting his career working with id Software as their creative director and designer, and working on Commander Keen, Wolfenstein, and Doom before moving on to work on this impressive list of games: Rise of the Triad, Terminal Velocity, Duke Nukem 2, Duke Nukem 3D, and Prey, before moving on to Ion Storm, where he headed the Anachronox team, while also voicing several characters in the excellent Deus Ex, like Walton Simons. The game was also written by Richard Zangrand Gobert, who went on to write the amazing 2018 release of God of War for the PS4, so the team was in great hands with a well-revered director and a writer that was well on his way to creating several classics. At that period of gaming, Anachronox was seen as a console-style RPG, as a majority of the RPGs released around that time on PC were closer to games like Baldur's Gate. A lot of console RPGs were closer to games like Final Fantasy, and with Final Fantasy X being released around the same time on the brand new PlayStation 2, it definitely made Anachronox, which used the already aged Quake 2 engine, look quite dated. Like Deus Ex, the game didn't have great sales on release, despite the fact that it was critically well reviewed. It would spell the end of PC exclusive games for Ion Storm and the end of the Dallas studio. I want to really stress that the story to this game is a lot of fun. The world is expansive and interesting, the characters drip with charisma and charm, and the story, although incomplete, definitely set up for what would have been one hell of a sequel. I think a comparable cast of characters would be something like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which features another eclectic gang of charismatic characters. The story centers around down-on-his-luck private investigator Sylvester Slyboots Buccelli, and begins with him being thrown out of his office window above the dive bar rowdies for not being able to pay his debts to local mobster Detta. He gets commissioned by an elderly man named Grumpus, who has an amazing ability to go on long rambling discourses that eventually drive people to become so bored and annoyed that they give in to his wishes. Grumpus wants to track down a relic made from a material known as Mystech, which to this point has no real value outside of artistic value, and when they do find this piece, it is quickly taken by Detta. This sends Sly and Grumpus on a journey around the galaxy as they search for more information on Mystech, which Grumpus assures will make them all rich. This leads the team to assembling quite the cast of characters, including a doctor imprisoned for her heretical ideas, Sly's toy robot who becomes sentient, his ex-lover, Stiletto Anyway, a washed-up alcoholic superhero named Paco Alpuno Estrella, Sly's dead former secretary, Fatima Duhan, who is digitized and lives on as an AI inside Boots' PDA. My favorite party member, though, was definitely the planet of Democritus, whom after you have saved, shrinks down to the size of a person in order to surprise Boots and pay him back by joining your party. As you go from planet to planet, Mystech is eventually awakened and found to be an incredibly powerful material, housing immense energy that was sent back to the past to help the people of the universe battle the forces of chaos in a multi-dimensional war between order and chaos. Yeah, the story isn't super straightforward. It can be hard to follow in places, and there are elements introduced in the story that you will definitely want to learn more about but are never solved, due to the fact that the overall story has no conclusion. The game's ending sets up another grand adventure for Boots and the gang, but another game was never created. Although I will admit that the smaller story focused upon in this game does have a fairly satisfying conclusion, I would love to know how the story ends, as it really is a treat. Throughout, the game does take you to consistently interesting places, such as the planet of Democritus, where everything is run by a democratic bureaucracy where the citizens are forced to vote on issues on a daily basis. My favorite locale was when midway through the game, you find yourself on the spaceship of comic book supervillain Rictus, who defeats you and throws you in his brig, which is filled with all of the superheroes that he has captured over the years. One such superhero is trying to protect the emergency parole button from being pressed by Invisalad, because supervillains have a sick sense of humor. His attempt at protection is not very successful, however.
Somebody hit the emergency parole button!
Is that good?
The game is also littered with dumb jokes, full of sexual innuendo, like where we have Phyllis Collins here telling us about the Beatles and their hit album, Beat the Beatles. I don't think that the gameplay has aged well at all in comparison to a lot of other games. The combat system in the game is very much similar to the Final Fantasy JRPG active time battle style, where it is a turn-based combat system with each character having their own independent timer that can be affected by your stats. The system does allow for character movement, as you have to be within range to perform melee attacks, and characters can be blocked by other characters, so you can protect your weaker party members by putting them in the back. However, the combat is never really challenging. I never died throughout the entire game. And midway through the game, you gain the ability to harvest bugs of different colors, which can be used in conjunction with a Mystech artifact in order to custom make spells of varying power and type. It's a super cool idea and it has loads of potential, but I never even really needed to learn the system for anything. The items they gave me in the game are plenty powerful and unique, and you could switch between them before individual battles. It's my own fault for not learning how to really take advantage of the system, but the game didn't really seem to call a lot of attention to using it, and in the end, I still had no problems finishing the game without it. The AI isn't very smart. It often will focus on non-essential targets or split the damage equally around your party, never really threatening anyone. I always had more than enough potions to refill my health and abilities, as the game feeds you more than enough money and resources as you play. Bonus points for the currency being based on the Canadian dollar, known as the loonie. Combat, unlike Final Fantasy of the time, is not random. You will see your enemies on the screen before you engage, allowing you to ensure you are healed up and ready to go before combat begins. These battles may not be avoidable, but you almost always see them coming, which is nice. Some of the puzzles were needlessly hard, like trying to find some obscure button on a computer screen to activate some obscure puzzle game on Rectus's ship in order to progress. Maybe it's due to how modern games do a better job of calling attention to their surroundings because they have better tools. The art of making immersive gaming has improved so much with technologies that older games can be frustrating when they didn't have those same tools. Puzzles that are hard to see can take you out of the game. Good games make you feel smart without being needlessly complex. The game's journal system is also a bit of a letdown. It only really keeps track of the main quests in the game, so any side quests you do get along the way, you pretty much have to remember or write down. This is one of those games where after every mission, the game also expects you to try to talk to every NPC on every planet again in order to find more random missions to take part in, and you have to pay close attention to some of the keywords they use because you might have to talk to an NPC with a different character to get the information or quest you really need. By doing this, it definitely causes the game to drag on, and I'm sure I missed numerous amounts of little side quests as I played. Each character has an ability they can use outside of combat. Boots can pick locks, Grumpus can yammer certain NPCs into getting his way, Democritus has a tractor beam that can grab items that are out of reach, and every ability features a minigame in order to use that ability. And they are all pretty straightforward, but fun enough. Your little robot buddy, Pal 18, has a little hacking game that definitely looks like a precursor to the hacking game used in BioShock. There's also a lot of other mini games that you will play throughout, whether it's flying your ship out of the wreckage as the planet Sunder is sundered, or an arcade on a distant planet, or one of those game cartridges scattered around. There are plenty of mini games to take part in. The levels can be hard to navigate at times, but they are never big enough to really get lost in. However, they reuse so many of the same textures over and over that rooms can be hard to differentiate at times. This is something that is a problem in a lot of 3D games of the era, but it is made worse with the dated Quake 2 engine. Another big pain is the fact that only a small percentage of doors actually open in the game, but since they all pretty much look the same, you will end up trying every single door in the game, which can be frustrating as you run around clicking on every single door, but only a small fraction of them will actually open. The game features time minders that are these little creatures that act as save points throughout the world, and you pet them to save your game. Although the game does allow you to turn on saves anywhere, there are more than enough time minders in the world that if you exclusively use them to save your game, you won't lose much progress if you die between time minders. Although there is no reason to artificially increase difficulty by having these specific save points, you might as well just turn on saving anywhere and not have to worry about it. Occasionally, you will have to use Boot's detective skills to solve some mysteries, and these sections were probably my favorite parts of the game outside of the non-stop jokes. I did enjoy the section in Wittenden where inhabitants are constantly mistaking you for someone they know as you try to solve a series of abductions. However, the dated engine does make some of the clues very tough to spot unless you have a keen eye. Although this section did feature some great music, which is for the most part another high mark for the game. Although the music is not as good as the excellent music in Deus Ex, it comes pretty close at moments. I'm not going to throw an Anachronox dance party, but the music definitely heightens most of the levels and has plenty of standout moments, including the excellent Wittenden level and the music in the entertainment section of Hephaestus. The game also does include some pretty impressive cinematic camera work, even if they do overdo it from time to time. During combat and cutscenes, the camera moves around seamlessly through the 3D world, and its result is a much better presentation of the story and its characters. It definitely feels like the most modern part of the game, although they probably could have toned down its use a little bit during combat, where it sometimes feels like the camera is whipping around the battlefield too much. At this point, I would normally talk about the game's effects on the genre and the industry, but it makes me sad to say that I can't. This is a game that I've heard talked about with such enthusiasm in a lot of different places, but sadly, I don't think any of my friends have heard of it. I looked at several lists of the funniest games of all times, and this game wasn't mentioned in any of them. Even a top 50 list, and that's a shame. The gameplay isn't great, but the story and world is. And it has a great sense of humor, and I wish more people would have experienced that at the time. At the end of the day, I don't think I would ever play through Anachronox again. there just isn't enough depth to the gameplay to make me sit down for another 25 to 30 hour jaunt through the game. But if you've never played it and want to experience the hilariously fun story, it's worth a playthrough. So thanks for tuning in. If you like the videos, please like and subscribe to the page. My Patreon page is below. The website is below. Please check out my other videos. I really enjoy doing these videos. I'm having a great time. If you like them, please let me know in the comments below. All right, thanks a lot, and bye-bye.